You know who I'd like to meet? Adolf Hitler, before he did all his damage. I would have put him to sleep well before that. I'm just throwing that out. That's the old mob stuff coming out at me. Hey everyone, welcome to another Sit Down with Michael Franzese. Hope everybody is doing well. Back here in the studio, ready hopefully to give you some more great and interesting content. Before I get into that, January 29th, 2022, right after the holidays, I'm going to be appearing at the Andiamo Theater, great theater in Warren, Michigan, just outside of Detroit. I'm going to be there live that night. Going to be speaking on stage, telling a lot of stuff that you haven't heard before. Production behind us. We're going to be doing a Q&A. Ask me anything that you want, no problem there. And then we're going to be doing VIP signing of books, and we're going to be doing the whole thing afterwards. I think down below the link is to get tickets. Don't go through Ticketmaster. Go through the Andiamo website. And by the way, it's a great theater. Chaz Palminteri has played there, Frankie Valli, a whole bunch of people. I'm excited to see all of you. Warren, Michigan, get your tickets now. They are selling out, so I will tell you that. We've sold out in Singapore, in Melbourne, in Sydney, Australia, and in various places throughout the country, so hopefully I provide a great night for all of you. I'm looking forward to it. Warren, Michigan, January 29th, 2022. What am I going to do today? You know, people ask me all the time, Michael, if you had an opportunity to meet anybody in your lifetime, who would it be? And you know, I didn't give this a lot of reflection, a lot of thought. A lot of people ask me this question, you know, I guess it's interesting. And I didn't really reflect on this and say, who would I like it to be? I just thought quick, off the top of my head, and they came up with 5 people that popped in right away. So I guess, you know, you can consider that maybe the 5 most interesting people. The first one, believe it or not, would be Abraham Lincoln. I find that guy so interesting, so intriguing. Number one of the main reasons was because of the determination that Lincoln had. Do you know that he had almost as many failures as he did as success stories? As a matter of fact, he failed so many times. It's amazing that this guy just didn't throw in the towel in politics and in every other place that he tried to move ahead on and just say, I've had enough. But no, he believed in himself. He was determined. He knew his ability, and nothing would hold him down. And as a result, he becomes president of the United States. And what a time to become president during the Civil War. You know, we have never in the United States history have had a war really on our own turf. And this was something that just tore the country apart. And Lincoln was the guy in charge. And what a really daunting task that he had in front of him as president of the United States. And, you know, I'm interested, too, a lot about his feelings on slavery. Now, we all know he believed slavery was morally wrong. He wanted to free the slaves. He eventually did free the slaves. It was a real tug-of-war, a real battle. By the way, just to let all of you be conscious of this and remember, Lincoln was a Republican. It was the Republicans that wanted to free the slaves, not the Democrats. Okay? I know times have changed in your view, many of you, but Republicans were never for slavery, nor were conservative people, never for slavery. Democrats and liberals, at one time they were. So check that. He believed slavery was morally wrong. And yet the Constitution, although it never really mentioned slavery, in a way advocated for slavery in some ways. I'm not going to get into the whole Constitution. I studied a little bit. But, you know, he wasn't an abolitionist. He didn't believe in totally abolishing slavery on every level. Where the abolitionists believed that slavery was bad, it was evil, and every person of color should have the exact same rights as anybody else. That's what I believe. That's what most Christians believe, and hopefully that's what most people believe today in this era. We are all created equal under God, and everybody should be treated the same way. I am totally against anything that has anything to do with anything less than that. He was just an interesting guy. And I would love to sit down and talk with him, pick his brain. Number one, you know, really get clear on what his feelings were back then during that whole period, the Civil War. And then number two, just really pick his brain about his determination, because that's impressive to me. When somebody can fail and fail and fail and fail at such a high level and just keep coming back because he believed in himself, the determination that he had was amazing. And where did it end up? President of the United States. Unfortunately, we know he was assassinated, but certainly doesn't take away from any of his accomplishments. I know he's considered to be one of the greatest presidents, and I believe that. He was our number 16, I believe, but I believe he was one of our greatest presidents. So, Lincoln is one. Another person that I would love to meet, and you know I'm a person of faith. Yes, I'm a Christian, and this is somebody that was so impressive to me, and his name obviously is Billy Graham. You know, he was an advisor to so many presidents. He had such an impact on the entire world at a time before social media, before the type of air travel that we even have today. When he started out in a tent. And I believe throughout his lifetime, Billy Graham spoke in person in front of crowds of over 200 million people. Think about that. During the 50s and 60s, and the time when Billy grew up, you know, and he was a Southern Baptist preacher. That's who he was. He had such charisma. He had such determination. He had such a strong belief in the gospel in Jesus Christ. Nothing could stop him. Nothing could prevent him from getting the word out. You know, Mark 16:15, go out and preach the good word to all of creation. Nothing was going to stop Billy in his quest to do that. And I will tell you this, you know, I was in a hotel room one night, and I was in a small town. I don't remember exactly where it was. They didn't have cable TV, you know, to any degree. I was getting ready to speak at an event the following morning. And that night I turned on the television, and a black and white show comes on. It was a documentary on Billy Graham. And during that documentary, he was preaching at an arena or someplace in the United Kingdom. And I was just transfixed by the message. You know, he didn't really have a testimony like I have, you know, came out of the mob life to some an entertaining story, and then I can lead into my testimony and how God transformed my life. Billy was just straight out Jesus. And the way the crowds responded to him was just unbelievable. I just admired him so much just from that one time I saw him on a black and white television, you know, in a little hotel room down south. And it was just unbelievable. And it just stuck with me. And I read more about him and I studied him. And, you know, he was an amazing guy. You know what got me? He was asked, you know, towards the end of his life, he was asked, Billy, do you have any regrets? And his regret was that he didn't do enough for Christianity. He didn't do enough to bring people to Christ. And I said, wow, if Billy Graham could say something like that after he devoted his life and spoke to over 200 million people personally around the globe, if he felt that he didn't do enough, you know, it kind of made what I do and maybe others just pale in his presence. But he was an amazing guy. I would love to have been able to sit down and talk with him and just hear about his conviction, his faith, and just admire him as a man. Another person I'd love to sit down with and just, again, pick his brain was C.S. Lewis. Some of you may not be familiar with him. Most Christians are. He was a British writer and theologian, brilliant guy, brilliant guy. He wrote a number of books, you know, the Chronicles of Narnia, the Screwtape Letters, Mere Christianity. And what impressed me about C.S. Lewis is that he became a Christian after deep research, real reflection. I mean, he studied and studied and studied. And you know, so many of these people, C.S. Lewis, even Lee Strobel, who is a kind of a modern day version of C.S. Lewis when it comes to apologetics, defending your faith. It's just so interesting to hear how they arrived at the conclusion that Christianity is the true faith that they believe in. And you know, I'm very into apologetics. Apologetics is really defending your faith. And the reason for that is because when I did come to Christianity, it wasn't easy. I mean, I challenged God. You know, I've been through so many things in my life, and I wasn't ready to buy into Christianity. And the way I found it to be the true faith for me was through research, through evidence that I picked apart. And I spent, you know, almost 3 years in the hole, and I did so much research at the time. I had my wife send me in so many books. Pastor was sending me in books. I was looking at every faith. And I came out of there after intense reflection and research and enlightening, I would say, by the Holy Spirit, that Christianity was the one true faith for me. And C.S. Lewis, reading some of his books, I would love to sit down with him personally and just hear some of the things that he had to say. Brilliant guy, and I admire brilliance. You know, I'll be honest with you, I think everybody does. And he wasn't stuck up or any, from what I've read about him. He was just brilliant, and I'd love to hear it because, again, I'm into apologetics, and he is one of the ultimates of our faith when it comes to knowledge of apologetics. Another person, I got to be honest with you, that I would love to sit down with, somebody that, a very controversial figure early on in the Christian faith. And sorry that, I'm mentioning all these Christians, but that's who I am, and these people, they really mean something to me, was Paul the Apostle. And what an amazing experience. I mean, what a transformation in life. You don't just come by a transformation like that out of nowhere. Set it up for you. Paul is a hater of Christians. As a matter of fact, he was present when the first Christian was martyred, Stephen. He was standing behind him, watching Stephen get stoned. And his job at that point in time was to martyr Christians, to hunt them down. He didn't believe in Jesus. He thought it was all a farce, and he was a hater of Christians. He's on the road to Damascus, and as Bible story tells us, he heard a voice, and that voice was Jesus Christ, who cried out and said, "Paul, Paul, why do you persecute me?" And he had his Jesus moment at that point. Jesus directed him to go into a village and to meet with Ananias, and his life was transformed at that point. But it wasn't only just, an easy transformation. He became one of the greatest men to ever be a profession of our faith. And it was just by hearing Jesus and what he went through from that point in time. I mean, to have a transformation like that, people, is just amazing. Now, I got to tell you this. People have compared me to Paul the Apostle as the modern day Paul. I don't believe that, and I don't buy into it at all. Read the Bible about Paul's life, and I don't even shine his shoes, so there's no comparison whatsoever. But it's just an amazing transformation that I would love to have sat down or just be around him. And if I could ever have that kind of faith and strengthen my faith as Paul had, to me it would be, amazing. But Paul the Apostle, no doubt about it, somebody I would love to sit down with. Lastly on this list, and it's actually the first person on the list, but I save it for last, was Jesus of Nazareth. Now notice I said Jesus of Nazareth and not Jesus Christ. As a Christian, I believe I'm going to meet Jesus Christ one day, and that obviously is Jesus of Nazareth. But some people forget, Jesus was a man. He walked the face of the earth. He laughed, he cried, he bled. He had emotion, he had feeling. He did everything a man would do because he was a man. But there's no doubt, after reading the Gospels and reading everything that I've read about Jesus, and it's been volumes of material that I've read about him, there was no greater man that ever walked the face of the earth. I say this, my dad, from the time I was 5 years old, he always told me, Michael, the standard that you have to live up to in life, you have to be a man's man. You walk down the street, people got to respect you. You got to hold your head up high. You got to treat women and children the right way. You got to have integrity. He always preached that to me. When I got into the mob life, I heard the same thing. We're men of honor. We're men's men. So when I came to Jesus, I'll be honest with you, I came differently than most people. Realizing that he was a man, Jesus of Nazareth, I wanted to see what kind of guy he was. So I separated his manhood from his deity, and I just studied Jesus of Nazareth. And I can talk about this for the rest of the day. I've been talking about it for 25 years. It's my favorite subject, no doubt about it. There was no greater man, there was no other man's man that ever walked the face of the earth. Jesus of Nazareth was the only perfect man. He was the exception to every other rule. The wisdom that he had, the courage that he had, the strength that he had, the love that he had, the kindness that he had, every positive emotion that can appear in any one single person, Jesus had them all. And he had them to perfection. And he was the one person that had the most profound and powerful impact on all of humanity. I don't know if people realize that. The calendar is set to Jesus. There's so many things that I can go into, but I'm not here to preach. I'm here to tell you the one person that I would love to be able to sit down with, would be Jesus of Nazareth. And like I said, hopefully I'm going to meet him one day when my life here on earth is over. But he certainly was the factor in bringing me to my faith. And I tell people this all the time. If you try to emulate Jesus of Nazareth in your life, just try to emulate him. Read the Gospel, study him, Read what he spoke of. Read what he taught. Read just the type of man that he was. If you try to emulate him through your life, you're going to be a better person. If you're a husband or a wife, you're going to treat your spouse the right way. If you're a parent, you're going to be the right type of parent to your children. If you're a boss, you're going to treat your employees with respect and courtesy and treat them the right way. If you're an employee, you're going to give your boss an honest day's work. Everybody in the community, everybody who comes in contact with you, everybody who meets you is going to benefit from you emulating the greatest person that ever walked the face of the earth. And you're going to benefit throughout your lifestyle. And look, I always say this, when you die, if you don't believe he's the creator of the universe and the savior of the world, and if he really wasn't, well, what did you have to lose? You're dead anyway. But your life on earth will be the best possible life it could be because you emulated the greatest man that ever walked the face of the earth. And that's who Jesus Nazareth was, in my opinion, the greatest man that ever walked the face of the earth. And let me tell you something. For those of you out there that think Jesus was a wimp, no, not by a long shot, okay? Remember how angry he got in the temple, how he threw over the tables when he thought that they were disparaging his father's house, God his father. Remember how he faced, the Jewish leaders at the time, who he thought were hypocrites because they were doing things to benefit themselves rather than the people that they were supposed to serve, much like our government today, our government leaders. And he looked them straight in the eye and he said, hypocrites, called them right out, wasn't worried about anything, told them to their face. That takes courage and strength. He was a minority at that point in time. And then you want to get into the last act of Jesus' courage as a man? No one, none of us here on earth could ever endure what Jesus endured when he died on that cross and what led up to him dying on that cross. Okay, the courage, the strength that he had to have to carry that cross and to take the beating that he took. And remember this, he was innocent. He wasn't a guilty person. He was innocent. And to me, the greatest act of kindness in humanity that I have ever witnessed in my life, not witnessed physically, but you know what I mean, was when Jesus was on the cross and some of the last words that he said, he looked up to heaven and he said, Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do. The greatest act of forgiveness that should be an example to everyone here on earth that holds a grudge or that gets, angry forever. That was the greatest act of forgiveness ever. He forgave all his oppressors, all his enemies. He was innocent. He died on that cross for the benefit of others, for all mankind. Nothing will ever be replicated. No person on earth can ever replicate what Jesus did. And you may say that this was an opportunity for me to preach. No, it's an opportunity for me to admire the greatest man that ever walked the face of the earth. So these are the 5 people just off the top of my head, that I would say I would like to meet. Now, if I gave it some deep reflection, I could probably get into a few others. You know who I'd like to meet? Adolf Hitler, before he did all his damage. I would have put him to sleep well before that. I'm just throwing that out. That's the old mob stuff coming out at me. But there's a few people that I would have loved to have met and maybe got rid of, before the damage that was done in life. And I think about that, the old mob head comes back into me every once in a while. But that's it for today. But, you people should think about it. If you had the opportunity to meet anybody you would want to meet, just to sit down, pick their brain, talk to them, who would it be? Think about it. Subscribe. We're well up over 700,000. Keep going. Remember I told you the Andiamo Theater and people, the Inner Circle and my crew. MichaelFranzese.com. I'm not going to elaborate on it today. You got to join the crew. You got to join the Inner Circle. I'm telling you, it will be a great benefit to you. And people are just getting so much out of it. And that's my goal in life, to encourage and to help. That's it for today. How do I always leave you? Same way. Be safe. Be healthy. I sincerely mean this. God bless all of you that keep tuning in. And yes, God willing, I'll see you next time.